Hi, my name is dberdichevsky, and today I will be taking you through a quick PowerPoint and demonstration of Brightleaf software and service. So who is Brightleaf before we jump into things? Brightleaf is a full end-to-end service company which assists with the legacy data migration of all of your contracts when implementing a contract management system. But what really differentiates us from a lot of our competitors in this industry is a couple of things. The first and foremost is that we're supremely focused on extraction and extraction only. We don't work into analytics, we don't go into reporting, we just focus on getting your documents and the data to the highest possible accuracy into your chosen CLM system. But on top of that, our solution is something that we recognize needs to be focused on from three different angles. It's not just a software solution that we offer, it's not just a people solution, but a very good combination of both, all of which are wrapped up into a proven Six Sigma process that we've developed internally, which really is what allows us to guarantee those supremely high levels of accuracy. Evidence to this is some of our clients, as you can see here. We've worked with most every client in the industry, and this speaks to not only our capabilities as a company, but also the flexibility of our service and our software. We're really able to dig down and get as business specific as required for each of our clients and get down to that minutia of data so that when they're reporting on that data within the system, they know that they can trust it. Just to speak quickly to a few points as to why migration is so crucial, why other clients are going through this effort, and why maybe you are currently watching this video and interested in this service. First and foremost, and the most important one, is for information. Legacy documents contain a slew of data within them that may not be readily available. It may have been forgotten. You may not even know that it exists. So the first thing that people are looking for is for that information. The second one is something that goes along with the implementation of a CLM system. It's called reporting. One of the biggest capabilities within the system is to be able to run reports on contracts and being able to consolidate them quickly and efficiently. Something that is not possible to do with your legacy agreements because it's essentially unstructured data. So if you're trying to run a report within the system, for example, for all your NDAs that expire at the end of this year or within the next 6 months, you first have to extract and then ingest the expiration date of that NDA into the system prior to running the report. One more little subject here that I'd like to point out is regarding compliance. There's a lot of compliance changes that are happening right now. GDPR changes out in the UK, ISB and FASB accounting standard changes out in the US. And a lot of companies are required to become compliant in a very short time frame, and that is something that we're assisting with as well. So how you can go about the extraction process, and this will really speak to a lot of the various options that you have when you go through this service or go through this effort. The first and foremost and the most obvious one is to do this internally, manually yourself. What this entails is hiring a couple of interns or lawyers, preferably lawyers, since you are working with sensitive legal information. You sit them down in front of a computer. You have an Excel spreadsheet on one side, the contract on the other side, on the other screen, and you just have them copy and paste into each Excel cell. Now, as you can imagine, this comes with a variety of problems. For one, the accuracy is going to be suspect at best. You don't know what's going to happen. Human error is going to be prevalent, especially with something as tedious and arduous as data extraction. The other problems with this is, one, it's going to be incredibly expensive, especially when you're hiring lawyers. They don't come cheap, especially in the United States, and you probably don't want to rely on interns to work on this type of information or this data. And then the other side of that is the consistency of the data. And this is something that Brightleaf solves within its service, but I do want to bring it up because it is quite often overlooked throughout the extraction efforts. And what I mean by consistency, I have a small anecdote that I like to say in order to bring, to kind of shine a light on it. But if you were to give 10 lawyers a contract and ask them to provide you the effective date, you very well might receive 11 different answers in response. So it's crucial to normalize the way that lawyers are interpreting your information and your data into a consistent format. So when you have that data within the system, you know exactly what that value is, how you got to that value, and what it actually means. So after you've taken a look at doing the work yourself and you decide not to go that route, you might look at outsourcing the work to an offshore organization. This solution is a little bit better these days. There's some great organizations out there. The problem is you don't know exactly who's going to be looking at your contracts. They might not be qualified lawyers. The issues of consistency of the data as well as the data quality will still be prevalent because you really have no way of guaranteeing it. And then on top of that is the security issue of where are these contracts going, who's actually looking at them. So then you would look at licensing technology. And in today's day and age, this is becoming the norm. The AI is starting to become very popular. It's very powerful, along with machine learning. However, when it comes to legacy agreements, there is a few flaws within the software that are just simply unavoidable. Now, it might not even be the software's fault, but a big issue with legacy agreements is the quality of the document. When the quality of the document is poor, then the actual extraction work done by the software is always going to be poor as well. So you're going to be licensing a tool, paying for the licensing of this tool, even though it's an effort that you really only need to do once. But then on top of that, you still need to go back and check the data that the software extracted. You have no guarantee as to its accuracy, and you really don't know where the software have made a mistake. And I'll actually show an example of this further on in this demo. So to bring this to a conclusion in regards to the software, it's important to really understand that after you've licensed the software, you've run it through your documents, you still have to hire someone to go in and check every single data point for its accuracy. Otherwise, you don't know what you're looking at in terms of quality of data. And so at Brightleaf, we recognize that all of these problems are very tedious, and on top of implementing a CLM system, a lot of times companies simply don't have the bandwidth to handle this workload. So what we've decided is to take the entirety of the pain points away. We have our own software that we've developed internally. It's our proprietary tool. We've hired and trained lawyers and legal professionals to use this software. And then all of this is wrapped in our Six Sigma process, which allows us to guarantee that very high levels of data accuracy. Another thing that Brightleaf can provide as a part of its service is the ability of matching up your parent and child relationship, matching up your parent and child documents. We can create that relationship for you as well. So when you go through the ingestion of that data, your documents are ingested together. The most relevant data is going to be ingested on top. And when they're in the system, you'll be able to see that hierarchy. This is actually discussed in another one of our white papers regarding sorting contracts, along with the deduplication of contracts, which if you want to find out more about, feel free to reach out to us. And finally, as a final output, or what our final deliverable looks like, it's a CSV or a XLS spreadsheet, very easily formatted into any database system or into any CLM system, since Excel is the lowest common denominator of all database systems. Now, the last slide that I would like to speak to prior to jumping into the demonstration of the tool is our process slide. And this is just a quick snapshot of what our process looks like at a very high level, just so you can understand what steps we go through in order to get to that data accuracy and the data quality that you're looking for. The first and foremost step, which is this one right here, circled in the red box, is the most crucial one. This is where we create something that we call the rules extraction manual. The rules extraction manual is an iterative process where we take on small sets of your contracts, run the extraction on them, and then get on a call to understand your input or the client's input as to what in the extraction they liked, what they didn't like, what interpretational changes they might want to see, what other format changes they might want to see on a per attribute basis. And we capture all of this information in this rules extraction manual. Now, this iteration takes about 3 to 5 times, about 5 to 15 documents per attempt. And typically by the 3rd or 5th iteration, we've completed on the rules extraction manual and both parties sign off on it. This is actually something that you will also receive as a deliverable at the end, at the beginning of our project. Now from there, we've set up a secure FTP site to which you will upload the rest of your documents after the rules extraction manual is complete. We'll run the documents through an OCR conversion as required. This is mainly because our software is a natural language processing software, which means that the documents need to be text-based in order for the software to understand it. The tool itself consists of two portions, the NLP, the Semantic Intelligence Engine, and the interpretation. You'll see momentarily what that looks like, but in short order, what it means is that the software reads and understands the document and then actually pulls out the attribute in a very UI-friendly way, which allows our lawyers to do a quick verification against the original document along with the PDF document. We do up to 3 levels of quality assurance on our extraction. That third level is where we do guarantee up to 6 sigma accuracy. From there, we provide the final output to you as a review. For review, the client can then review the attributes and the information, see if it matches with their expectations. Typically, though, I have to be honest, by the time we get to this step, our lawyers know more about the contracts than the client does, so there's a little bit of trust built up. And then from there, you have the final output, which you can then upload into a CLM system or any database of your choice. Now, before we jump into the software demonstration, I would just like to show you a couple of documents that we'll be working on, and as well as the sample of the rules extraction manual. What you're looking at here is that rules extraction manual that we would create prior to engaging in the full project. In this case, we've used Acme Corporation as our base, simply for example, but to really illustrate the point, if you take a look at one of the attributes here, for example, the effective start date, assuming that we've had a few conversations with the Acme Corporation, what we've discussed is that first and foremost, the format of this attribute is that it's going to be a date field. Then we actually capture the order of preference for extracting that attribute. So in this instance, the first thing that we look for is the defined effective date. If that's not available, we look for the contract made on date. If we can't find that, we look for the contract initial term start date. And finally, if none of those are available, we'll go by the latest execution date. We'll then actually capture a live instance of one of your documents of that attribute, highlight where we found it, and then show you how we would extract it. And this we do for every single attribute because it really is the only way to guarantee consistency of the data quality. Now, the first NDA that we're going to be working on is a confidentiality non-solicitation agreement. All the contracts that we're working on today are going to be NDAs. But what I wanted to illustrate is a few instances of where the software will fall short, how Brightleaf solves that problem, and as well as the fact that it really does not matter to us the formats of the contracts that we're working on. They could be templated, they could be third-party paper, they could be vendor paper, they could be sell-side, buy-side, they could be your paper. It doesn't matter to us. What's important is that we're extracting the same attributes from each contract type. Now, this document here, as you can see, is a pre-OCR, simply just been scanned contract. And what I want to bring your attention to is this value here where it says Donald Smith as the party to name. Now, when we OCR'd this document, there were some errors that we fixed. However, when we OCR'd it, there was one error that we did not fix. And that error is that Donald Smith became Ronald Smith. Now, as you can imagine, no software will recognize that Ronald Smith is actually supposed to be Donald Smith and will extract it as such. And I'll show you momentarily exactly how Brightleaf solves that problem. So this is the first NDA that we're working on. The second NDA has a completely different format to it. Looks like this. The third one has another format to it. It looks like this. And then finally, this is what the fourth one looks like. So now what you're looking at is Brightleaf's internal software that we use in order to aid us with the extraction efforts. And this is really where Brightleaf is able to shine and illustrate why we're such a go-to company for this effort. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start the transaction. I do that by going here. I'm going to choose the documents, jump into here. select the contracts that we're extracting, so the 4 that I just showed you. I'm going to call this vid1 so we understand what transaction we're working on. The rule type is going to be NDA that we've already pre-created, and I'm going to hit here to start the execution. Now, the execution only took a second, and this is a transaction identifier, so we're going to click on it here. We want the documents to be separated by document rather than everything consolidated, so that's correct. And once we click continue, what we see now is exactly what Brightleaf's lawyers see and do every single day for the client. So pretending that we're Brightleaf's lawyer, just to illustrate a few points here, I'm going to verify a couple of things so you understand the process that we go through internally. What they'll do is they'll click on view here. Then the software will immediately jump to the area in the contract and highlight it for the lawyer to verify. However, what the lawyer also has, and which I unfortunately can't record in this instance, is that they have a second screen open with the original document against which they also check the data. Now, this verification is important because for a couple of reasons. One is, as you recall, there's going to be errors created by the OCRing process. But the other reason is that when you OCR a document, it actually ceases to be legally binding because you've now altered it and you have not re-signed it. So in this instance, it's very important to check it not only against the original document, and the OCR document, but the original document as well. So as pretending we're a Brightleaf lawyer, what we'll do is we'll click on view here. We'll check it in all 3 locations. If it all matches up, we click on verify. We'll then move on to the next attribute, party 1 name. We'll click on view here. It matches up in all 3 locations. The format is agreeable with according to the rules extraction manual, so we'll click on verify. Now, party 2 name, when we click on view, it matches up here. However, as you recall in the original document, the value was Donald Smith. So the Brightleaf lawyer will go in here, make that change, and then verify, and that change will be reflected in the final output. The term here, the next attribute, this agreement shall terminate in 2 years. As you can see, the format was automatically changed to 2 years. We'll verify that since it matches up. Assignment clause, again, found it in its entirety. What our lawyers will do is they will read this, understand it, make sure that there's no spelling or grammar errors. Once they're satisfied and that it all matches up, they'll click on verify here. The governing law found its location in this section here, only pulled out the United States value as per the rules extraction manual, so we'll verify that. The effective date, when you click on view, pulls us to the top of the contract. As you can see here, it found that section, it found the attribute, but automatically reformatted it to this value, so we'll verify that. And then lastly, return of materials clause. The software did find it here, but instead of pulling out the entirety of the clause, it simply pulled out a yes value. And this is very crucial because if you want to be able to report on an attribute within a database system, you need to pull out the attribute as a yes, no as to whether or not it exists. And this is important for any database. So we're going to click on verify here. And as soon as we do, it immediately jumps to the next contract because that contract has been fully verified. Now, I'm going to take a few attributes here and verify them for the sake of example. But as you can imagine, this gets very tedious, and thankfully, I'm not required to do this as my full-time job. But our lawyers that are working on this daily absolutely love what they do. So here I'm going to click on view. Again, it pulls out the title of the agreement. We just read it here, verify that it matches up, and it does, so we'll verify that. As you can see here, the party names, nearby.info, it matches up, so we'll verify that. Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit to another instance where it's important to have human review and not just software doing the work. So here in the instance of governing law, if you read this section, it dictates, this agreement shall be governed by and construed in accordance with the laws of the state of California, applicable to contracts entered into and wholly to be performed within the state of New York. Now, the software reads and understands that this section contains the governing law. However, it doesn't know which state is the proper governing law jurisdiction. So it's crucial for someone with legal knowledge to read this section and to make this judgment call, which is something the software cannot do. So in this instance, I understand that New York is not the proper governing law, so I'm going to retain this ignore result section. But here, since California is the proper governing law, I'm going to uncheck this box and verify this attribute. Now, thankfully, this is the demo version of the software. So I have a cheat button here that I'm going to click, which is the verify document. And I'm just going to verify the final 3 documents just for the sake of time. Now, as soon as I click this button yes here, this will jump us to the results page here. As you can see, this is the transaction ID that we just worked on, and it's been fully verified. Something that allows us then to click this export button for the final output. Had we not fully verified the transaction, we would have this pending verification status and we would not be able to click export. So I'm going to click export. I want everything to be consolidated onto one spreadsheet for the sake of simplicity. And now what you're about to see is Brightleaf's final output, which is then taken and sent into, or ingested rather, into any CLM system of your choice. As you can see here, the party 2 name, Donald Smith, we made that change from Ronald to Donald. That change is reflected here. And in governing law, we did not select New York, but kept California as the proper governing law. So that's being reflected here. This is where I'm going to leave you. Hopefully this was an educational presentation for you. Happy to get on a call or discuss this with anybody at any time. Happy to just answer any questions or clarify any details that you might have. So feel free to reach out to me. You can find my contact information on the Brightleaf website or below in the description of this video. Thank you again for joining me. It's been a pleasure.